this is Holly, and before we do roll call, I just wanted to remind everybody of our communication expectations during this meeting. We do have sign language interpreters on the call. Please make sure that you are identifying yourself before you speak, and make sure if there is back and forth dialogue going on, that you are allowing time for appropriate interpretation between that discussion. All right, and with that, I will do roll call. Okay, representing CCI, Steve, Tina, or Marie? Okay. Representing CML, Megan? Okay. Representing accessibility community, Cheryl?
Cheryl is here. She'll be here in about a minute or so.
Okay. Representing members at large, Billy or Luke? All right. Representing Lumen, Tim?
Hi, good morning. I'm here.
Okay. Representing Entrado, Mary Jane?
Yes, I'm here, Holly. Thank you.
Representing Lumen from the ILEX, Wes?
Here.
Representing NNTC, Darla?
I'm here.
Representing T-Mobile Wireless, Jenny?
Good morning. I'm here. Thank you.
Representing Viero, Monica? All right. Representing IntelliQuint, Cindy or Lindsay? Representing Bandwidth, Jay or Erica?
Jay Slater's here.
And now moving on to 911 reps. Representing Gunnison, Jody?
I'm here.
Representing Morgan, Danette? Okay. And representing.
This is Billy. I'm here.
Representing Grand Junction. I think Jeremy is on the call.
Jeremy Duncan's here for Jennifer.
Hey, Holly, it's Danette. Sorry, I couldn't get unmuted quick enough, but I'm here.
All right, thanks, Danette. I got you down.
Holly, this is Cindy from IntelliQuint. I apologize. I didn't realize I was double muted. I'm here representing IntelliQuint.
This is Holly. Thank you. Let me update that. Okay. Representing Larimer, Kimberly or Amy?
Hey, this is Kimberly and I'm here.
Representing AdCom, Jackie?
This is Jackie and I'm here.
Representing Eagle, Beth?
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning. Representing Sterling, Valicia?
Hey, Holly, it's Danette. Valicia just sent me a text that said she will be running a little late, but she will be on the meeting shortly.
This is Holly. Thank you. Representing Jeffco, Jeff?
Jeff Irvin is here.
Representing Delta, Connie?
Connie is here, but no longer representing Delta. I no longer work for them.
Thank you. This is Holly. I'm going to remove you from that. And then after roll call, I will turn that over to see how we want to handle that position. Okay, representing Douglas, Deanie?
This is Deanie.
And representing Denver, Andrew or Jody? Representing Jeff Com, Michael or Kyle? Representing Aurora, Tina or Scott? We got Scott on. Representing Thornton, Sean Brandy, or Ashley? All right, representing Wesco, Mandy,
Hi, Holly. This is Mandy. I'm here.
and
Holly.
represent,
Apologies, Holly, this is Scott, and Brandy posted in the chat that she is here for Thornton.
thank you. This is Holly. I've got that updated. All right, and representing Garfield, Carl or Tom,
Carl, I'm here.
and representing Boulder, Patty or Kristen.
Patty West is on.
Thank you. This is Holly. We have a quorum. We do not have a supermajority, but we do have a quorum.
We do,
And then
right? 79%.
this is Holly, yes, 79%. Oh, I'm sorry. I see. A supermajority is 67% and we have 79%. So we do have a supermajority. I was looking at the wrong numbers. And then I guess I will turn that back over to Scott on, do we need to do anything for filling the Delta spot since Connie is no longer representing Delta County?
Thanks, Holly. This is Scott. Do we have any other representative from Delta County on the line today? Okay, not hearing any. Daryl, I'd recommend we can email Delta County to ask them if they have an alternative to fill. And if they do not, then I would propose at the next task force meeting that we solicit for another voting member to fill the 911 role.
Thank you, Scott. We'll do that. And just so everyone knows, according to our bylaws, the position goes with the agency, not with the individual, so they can fill it with another person if they have someone available. Otherwise, Scott, I think you're correct. The next thing to do would be to call the position vacant and hold a special election to fill it.
This is Scott. Thank you for that, Daryl. Okay, we will move on to approval of the minutes for January. Are there any questions regarding the material within the minutes? Okay, hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the January minutes of the task force meeting?
This is Jackie from AdCom. I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Jackie, and may I get a second?
This is Cheryl. I second.
Thank you, Cheryl, appreciate it. Since we are virtual, any opposed, please say so now. Hearing none, we will approve the minutes of January 2022 meeting. And again, this is still Scott. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, we do have a resource center vacancy and we would like to talk about the election today. So Daryl, I apologize. I don't know if we turn this to you or if we want Jackie to, I'm sorry, not Jackie. If we want a brief description of the position or if there's any candidates who have already submitted any interest in filling that position.
So Vicky is currently the chair of the task force. Vicky, have you received any interest from anybody in filling that position? President, I should say. Madam President, Vicky.
Sorry, my audio cut out. Can you repeat that?
Sure. We're talking about the vacant position on the Resource Center board. Have you received any interest from anybody in filling that position?
I did not.
Okay. So this is a position that was being filled by Jennifer Schwartz with Denver 911. Jennifer is no longer with Denver. The position is now vacant. So we're looking for somebody to fill the remainder of her term. So it would just go to the end of 2022. If that person wants to continue on after that, they can run for re-election, but this would just be to fill it till the end of 2022. And it does have to be a 911 representative selected by the task force. So it's up to the task force to appoint somebody to that position.
Thank you, Daryl. This is Scott. So for the group that is on the call now, do we have anybody who is interested or any nominations to fill that vacancy?
Recording in progress.
This is Deanie from Douglas County. I'd be willing to do that.
Thank you, Danny. We appreciate that. That's very helpful. Do we have anybody else who is interested in filling the role? Okay, then I don't know, do we need a motion to do the vote, Daryl, or do we just make the vote?
I think probably a motion to close nominations and to approve Deanie as the new Resource Center Board representative.
Jeff Irvin, so moves.
Thank you, Jeff. And can I get a second?
Jackie at Adcom, second.
Thank you, Jackie. Any opposed to closing the voting and making Deanie the new 911 Center Resource Center chair? Any opposed? All right, thank you, Deanie. We appreciate your interest in serving in that role, and thank you for volunteering and stepping forward.
Happy to help.
Great. So this is still Scott. Moving on to the next item in the agenda, we have a rapid SOS presentation from Karen Marquez.
Real quick, this is Holly. Just before we move on, I did want to acknowledge the folks in the chat that I did see that Denver, Viero are here, and that IntelliQuint has a name change. So I'm updating that on my end.
And this is Scott. Thank you for that, Holly. And Karen, if you'd like, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you so you can start your presentation.
Sounds good. If I can have screen sharing rights, that would be awesome.
So I think you should already have them. I just unshared my screen, so you should be able to click the share screen icon at the bottom.
Perfect. It let me click OK now. So let's see. Slideshow. Just nod your head for me, Daryl, that you can see once it loads. Thank you.
There it is. Yep.
Helpful. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I think I know everybody here, so I'm not going to go into a detailed introduction because, well, y'all know me. So Bruce and Sam were not available today. Sam is on PTO and Bruce is double or triple booked already with calls in his second week at Rapid SOS, but you know him too, so he needs no introduction here. Dive quickly into this. Really, we just want to talk about data-driven dispatch for improved response and let you all know what kind of data is in your community today. I see that there's something in the chat, so if it's for me, if somebody can just holler and let me know. Otherwise, I will dig into that next slide. So current challenges in the ECC, you know, we talked to all of you here in Colorado, we talked to 911 managers and directors across the United States, and we're hearing the themes that staffing and retention, well, that's a crisis now, it's not just a challenge. Recruiting is also a significant challenge, almost turning into a crisis because we can't get qualified people into the center to stay long enough to get trained to be qualified telecommunicators, right? We hear that technology is increasing at rapid pace, and I put that in there as a little bit of a joke because I know I've heard from many of you as well that things are moving so quickly all the time, and all of that can lead to too many windows, too many screens, and lots of stress for the telecommunicator, lots of stress for the decision makers who are also trying to bring the best tools forward, but not inundate your staff and making sure that we're bringing the right tools, the right information, so that we can help to de-stress and take away some of that from their plate. So we know that there's a lot of challenges. We're going to hear more from you at the end, but I think this aligns with some of the things y'all are experiencing that we've heard. Talking about data, we use that word a lot. I feel like for a while it was a buzzword. So what is it? Data is really just factual information used as a basis for reasoning. So we've used data for a very long time. Data is not new to us, but we are using this term as we bring in more information in contextual formats for telecommunicators to use when that call for service comes in. Historically, telecommunicators have used data, as I said. That on the alley screen is just that. It is data. It's information based on points that are available to deliver in that call for service, but that data screen is limited to 512 bytes of data. And if you think back in history, the first Atlantic or transatlantic telegram had more data than what we see in the Annie screen today. And so moving forward, we know that 911 is able to now receive so much more data contextually and even visually than ever before. And so how can some of this data actually streamline your workflow, create efficiencies, and help you understand and gain more situational awareness while you're responding to these calls for service, even before maybe you have wheels that are heading out to the scene? So as we know, telecommunicators are the first responder, and this really gives you eyes on what's occurring even before maybe you've been able to ask some of the questions that you traditionally do. So today, data is actionable. There's information that is given to you that you can take and make decisions on. Obviously, policy, procedure, training is going to take precedence, but you have more information now that eliminates some of the human factor errors, eliminates some of the maybe judgment or biases from callers that aren't involved in situations, and may also help eliminate some of the transcription errors or misinterpretation of what might be happening on the scene. So let's talk a little bit about some of the non-human initialized data elements that are coming into your centers today. And you have been receiving telematic information in an analog format for many, many years. We know that there's a company called OnStar that brings vehicle telematics in, and that experience has traditionally been done through a relay center. So a monitoring center that calls your agency and says there's been a crash or there's an incident involving one of their vehicles, and then here's the contextual information. But the folks at those centers have all of this rich data that could be provided to 911 and help to cut down the length and the time that it takes for that call for service to happen. And I'm going to break here for just a second because I noticed there's 4 things in the chat. Do I need to address any questions yet, Daryl?
Nope, no questions yet.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So back to telematics, we're receiving this information in an analog format, but the telecommunicator doesn't always know that there's so much more information that they could have asked. We have the location of the incident or where the scene is. We may have how many people were involved, and we're getting that information quickly so we can get responders out there. But now vehicle telematics can automatically send this data into you as soon as that monitoring center calls you. And so what you could see on your screen are things like the VIN, the make, the model, the color, the license plate, how many people were in that vehicle, maybe where the seatbelts were, and if seatbelts were engaged or disengaged, if the vehicle's rolled over, if there's fluids leaking. All of those different data points can help change whether it's upgrading your response or adding resources that would have normally been delayed if you didn't add them until somebody was on scene to verify that information. So vehicle telematics can help us make sure that hazmat's on scene much quicker than they were before, can help us update and send a second ambulance if needed, if we know maybe there were 6 people in that vehicle instead of 1 or 2. And we also know that our callers aren't always involved in the incident, but that vehicle knows exactly where it is, and that vehicle knows what occurred. And so that vehicle now is giving you more of that accurate information, where the traditional voice calls were making assumptions based on what they see and sensed. So vehicle telematics really can help you make a data-driven decision and really can help impact the response times out in the field as well. We know that we all live in a connected world. I've been talking to you all about this for the last 4 years that I've been here at Rapid SOS, but there's so many different apps and services that can bring data in. So everybody has a great idea to solve the 911 challenge, right? And we often hear about these new apps and these new connected things that are going to automatically dial 911 or send information directly to the field responder. And those of us that live in this world say, yeah, that's not how any of this works. Please stop saying that. Well, how can we work with the app providers, and how can we educate them, first of all, on 911 and how 911 and telecommunicators can best receive that information and best utilize it? Call takers, dispatchers may not always be the right one to have that information. So it's really important to focus on the next phase of pushing that data out to the field as well. So things like first name, last name, emergency contact information, obviously location information. So what kind of apps am I talking about? Uber. Uber has a connected safety shield within their app that creates a natively dialed 911 call where you might be connected to the driver or the passenger. So you're talking to the person that's having the emergency, reporting the emergency, but automatically you're seeing on your screen the caller name, caller phone number, vehicle make, model, color, license plate state. All of that information available within the first few seconds. So now we're creating those efficiencies. We're creating that data-driven dispatch because information is able to be sent to you because you're able to receive that data in a screen that can handle information, including multimedia. I don't know how many of you have a connected home. Now we think about 48% of the United States now has cameras in their homes. And so home security really is growing in the fact that I can now watch my home security system from my device. And if something's happening while I'm traveling, because I'm on the road pretty much all the time, but if something's happening, what am I going to do? Well, I have AdCom's number. Yes, Jackie, I have your number on my phone because that's where my home is. But for the general public, they're not going to have their non-emergency line. And if they call 911 trying to report it, you all know the delays that occur there. So how can home security systems work with companies to make sure that if they do call 911, it's routed to the location of their home and all of the contextual information about that house is delivered to 911 instead of kept at that monitoring center. So you're going to see companies like Simply Safe, we'll talk about them a little bit more in a moment, Cove and many others bringing in all of this contextual data to your center on the screens that you're using today while that phone call comes in as well. So there will no longer be the question of what is zone 3. It will be displayed on your screen as long as the person enters the information correctly. And then in the healthcare space, we know that Apple has the fall detection, Apple has the medical ID. We have emergency profile, we have Smart 911, and we have a lot of other tools where people can put medical information into different databases. And when that device or that phone number calls 911, medical information can be provided. So it's not just allergies anymore or medical conditions. It also could be things like mental and behavioral health data that really can improve responses as many people move towards having a co-responder either head out to the scene or having a different type of responder triage that call before it determines who is actually going to go to the scene. So any questions there before we dig in a little bit to smart homes?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
If you can go back to that last slide. On the medical conditions, and you talked about mental health issues as potentially being one of the ones that is relayed to 911, assuming they enter that information, into their phone. Is it getting that from the phone somewhere, or are you relying on partners to have apps that they would use to build a profile?
So both ways. In the Apple Medical ID field, you can put the information that you want to when you fill out that form. So it could be mental health, it could be medical information. I will also caveat that whenever you go in there and you put your Apple Medical ID and you connect your emergency responder or your emergency contact, whatever you have them set as on your phone is what is going to display. So if it says mom and dad on your phone as your emergency contact, dispatch is going to see mom and dad. If you have a pet name for your loved one, your significant other, it's going to show your pet name with the emojis that you've put on there. So I just kind of want 911 to know what to expect when you see that. And then some people get a little squirrely when they're filling that out, and it might not be true medical and mental health information. It may be other descriptors that are probably not so appropriate to be putting in there. You're going to see some funny things too, but Daryl, it's really whatever the person wants to put on that app directly from the device. However, if they're not an Apple user, today we're not receiving that from Google. However, there are applications that I'm going to talk about that can send that information over as well. I don't know that we'll ever get away from having multiple different applications because people have lots of ideas. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that want to do good things. And I don't think that they're always going to share their app with someone else. So we have to aggregate that data so that the telecommunicator doesn't have to worry about where it comes from or having multiple APIs into their
Right.
systems. Let's aggregate it, let's make sense of it and display it consistently so that you can know where it comes from, but you can rely on that information provided.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, so smart homes a little bit. We are working with Simply Safe and Cove. So I'm going to talk about these two specifically because I can't talk about the others that we're not working with. So today in 911, you are able to see alarm information as supplemental data. And I say supplemental because that monitoring center is still going to call your 10-digit number and report that alarm. And if you are using the solution in the tool, Rapid Portal, you'll be able to see in the supplemental tab or the alerts tab, all of this information. So the address of the residence or commercial location of where the alarm is happening at. You'll be able to see, maybe where the alarm zone is. If it's zone 3, that might say front bedroom. Now, I have just set up my Simply Safe security system, and Jackie, we're going to make sure that we don't false alarm you all. But I have really tried to make sure that all of the different areas in my personal home were defined, as well as providing really good instructions. So what are the cross streets? Because it's a newer development. How many animals are in the house? If in case of a fire, I have children in the basement, so please get them out. Things like that, where you can add contextual information to keep your home safe. And all of that could be visible as supplemental to the telecommunicator. So if you all are busy and you're triaging all these calls and you need to get off the line really quickly, you can say, hey, I've got all this information on the home. I verified it. Let's get you off the line so I can handle all of the other things that are happening. Moving forward, for agencies that are interested, you can actually get rid of that 10-digit phone call because we are in a pilot phase right now where you can receive the alert directly. There's a visual verification, there's an audible verification, and you can accept that alert. Once you accept that alarm, then you have opened up a two-way chat between you and the monitoring agency so that they don't have to call you. And you can ask further follow-up questions about key holder response or any other sensors and triggers if they display through that chat session and not have to talk to them. So reading through a lot of the Facebook threads on different dispatcher sites, I know everybody loves talking to alarm companies, right? So just some things that are happening with connected homes today. And then, as I mentioned, we talked about SiriusXM. And connected cars. So we did a case study in Henderson County, Tennessee with SiriusXM. So you all are receiving car crash information from SiriusXM Monitoring Center today. And in February, we found that there were 7 cases where SiriusXM data was delivered to Colorado agencies. Federal Heights, I don't know if you're on the line, but you all received one. Douglas County received a couple. Aurora, you received some, and then Washington, Yuma County as well in the month of February. So I would love to hear from any of you if you had any experiences and how you might have used that information. But we certainly don't want to get you inundated with crashes, but when a crash occurs, we know this data can be valuable. So the workflow for SiriusXM crash is crash occurs, information goes to their monitoring center. And they do work very similarly to another provider where the monitoring center has the person on the line. They work with a partner or a buddy that will call the dispatch center if response is needed. And then these two are working together. So they have chat features between the two of them. And they're typically sitting in a room very much like dispatchers are, where they can holler over to each other so that they're in constant communication. But as soon as they send that call over to 911, all of the information is available for that crash. So vehicle information, like I said, seatbelt deployment, if there's hazards leaking, if the car has turned over and wheels are up, how many occupants may have been in the car, where the impact was, if airbags deployed. So if a person is in a crash, single vehicle accident, they can't talk. All of that data can really help us understand the situation so much better. So I just kind of wanted to hit on that for a moment. And then we're going to talk about other data providers that are sending information to you today that you may not even know about, may have never heard of. So in the security space, we talked already about Simply Safe and Cove and a few others, but there's a company called Zero Eyes that works with buildings within your community, and they can stick their technology on top of fixed cameras, and they can actually sense weapons on persons. So if there is a weapon that is on a person, somebody at that building or facility, whether it's an administrator at a school, a security guard at a building, will get a notification on their device. And they're making that visual verification to see if a responder actually needs to be sent or if 911 needs to be invoked. Once they do, then Zero Eyes will send all of that information over to you in the center with all of the data on where the building is, what the building's name is, the address, the weapon that was detected, and the person who received that alert, your emergency contacts. If you do need more information, you'll have information on people to contact for that building, but you'll know what kind of triggered that information to come into you in the first place. And then you'll have that first party interaction with the caller. Palm is a wearable personal safety app that Gal created. It's peace of mind monitoring. And really, it was initially geared towards children that are on the spectrum, where you could put this wearable device and allow that child to have some freedom, but with some boundaries as well. You could create a geofence where that child is allowed to go, allowed to be, but once they cross outside of that boundary, then the parent gets notified. If the parent feels that child is in danger, then that parent can push a button on their device that connects them to 911 as a natively dialed 911 call, but routes that call to the location of the child. And then you would be displayed the caller name, the caller phone number, the location of that child and where they're wandering with continuous updates, and then any other information that may have been provided in Daryl, what you mentioned, kind of that app. So if they are on the spectrum or any other warnings or conditions that they might want to provide to public safety. And then I'm going to go down before we go over to the right-hand side and talk a little bit more about connected mobility. Just wanted to highlight that not only SiriusXM, not only Uber, Farmers Insurance and Merlin Mobility and MDigo and all of these other companies that you probably have never heard of are working with car manufacturers to put either dongle stickers or a connected something in those vehicles so that when a crash occurs, that information is able to be provided to 911. So we don't expect anyone to know all of these things. Just know that if a crash occurs, you're going to look at that information and you're going to have contextual information to support your call. And if the person is unable to speak, you have information to at least start trying to understand that there may have been a crash. This isn't just a butt dial. And I think that really can help us understand the situation much better, because if you assume it's a butt dial, you do your 2 attempts to call back, no one answers, no one texts back to you, then what happens to that call? We hope that somebody later would, and we've received several stories of folks that have found domestic violence victims, have found unresponsive parties because they had contextual information to drive to that response. In the healthcare space, we did show at the Colorado ABCO-NENA conference in October a really cool video starring Emily Peak from Westminster PD in the Avive video. And this is where you have intelligent AED that is going to be FDA approved later this year, where now you can actually start dispatching a smart AED to the location of the incident. And so I think that's really powerful when we think about, there are AEDs in buildings. I go to what we call a remote church. And so it's at a high school. And on Sundays, that AED is typically behind some sort of a glass door, and it's not clearly marked where it is. And so I've gone hunting and finding all the AEDs. But what if, as a remote church, we actually had one in our backpack because it's very small, and in the event of an emergency, we were able to bring that, or have somebody over at Westminster poke the button that says dispatch AED. The AEDs that are nearby get an alert, and it says, take me to this location, cardiac arrest. It says something about cardiac arrest noticed. And there's a GPS map on that device itself. And once that device is picked up and starts moving, you're going to see not only the 911 call, but you're also going to see the AED and its ETA to the location, which is pretty cool. And then there's a lot of other companies out there like Vitals. Many of you may have met them in October at the APCO NENA conference. Vitals has kind of a couple different things that they do from the consumer all the way to the field responder. So for the consumer, they have an application that you can, as a parent or caretaker, create one or multiple profiles up to 10 for the individuals that are under your care. Mental, behavioral health, any other invisible condition that someone may be experiencing. And if any of those persons calls 911, all of that information is displayed. So as we talk about mental health issues in our centers and utilizing data to help understand, that caller and what they may be going through, the crisis at the time, and how to best triage that call, Vitals allows you to put in behavioral descriptions, triggers, and de-escalation techniques. So you can actually talk this person through what their situation is using the information that they provided, rather than trying to have to figure it out on the fly like we've traditionally had to do. And then out to the field, they also have a little wearable device for parties in the community. That wearable device would go on the person that would experience crisis or has the invisible condition. If an officer comes within 80 feet of that person, the officer gets a notification on their phone from the app that says, hey, you've got somebody with a Vitals app. So if it's a child with autism that's wandering on their own, that officer may see that that child doesn't want to be touched. So, don't tap him on the shoulder and see if little Johnny's okay. And that may have other information about how to build rapport with that person immediately for an improved outcome. We don't want that child to run from law enforcement. We don't want that child to run from anyone. So how can we build that rapport? By having the information immediately at your fingertips. We're also now building that bridge between 911, field responders, and that community member for improved outcomes. Masimo is another one that you may have seen commercials. I've actually seen them here in Colorado. They're in the healthcare space. Masimo has the ability with their wearable technology to detect when people are overdosing. And when they're going into that overdose, they could receive kind of a notification. And these are people that are typically under a doctor's care. That notification may open up the ability for somebody to call 911 and show you that this person is going into overdose. It's a low O2 saturation, and here's the drug of choice that these people may use. So while we know that we don't want to increase the number of calls, if you know that somebody's overdosing and they're about to die, let's get that information out to that field responder immediately and let's save some lives. So Masimo's doing some amazing things, Brave as well, Ludi Band, and all of these others. Happy to give you more information, and it's also at your fingertips in your RapidSOS portal account. And then going into a little bit more, keep me honest on the time, maybe about 10 more minutes, potentially. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Instacart and more. So Apple and Google are delivering both location information, language information, medical information, crash detection. But why is Instacart on the screen? So Instacart actually has a panic button in their app for their delivery drivers as well. Chick-fil-A is another one. Now, Instacart isn't going to send you additional data today, but what you are going to receive if they push that panic button is a call from a monitoring center that says that there has been an emergency detected, and they will give you all of the information from the Instacart panic. So the location, the driver name, etc. This one is interesting because it is new to the RapidSOS monitoring world. So you were going to hear a call saying, this is RapidSOS monitoring with an emergency from Instacart. And like I mentioned, this one's not going to have additional data today. Hopefully that can grow, but you may experience a time where you receive a call from RapidSOS monitoring, relaying information or connecting you to the caller directly based on the different use cases of the people that sign up for that service. So don't be surprised if you hear RapidSOS monitoring. It is a new thing. Happy to share more on that, but just want to make sure you're aware that, hey, I'm getting a call from Rapid SOS Monitoring. That's weird. It's not my traditional Brinks, ADT, and others. And then, of course, a lot of other first responder technology, things from First Eyes playing in the drone space. You're going to hear more about Axon sending data as well from their consumer products, but also, of course, their body cams and location for field responders. So getting that first party location information or person level tracking for folks with Axon body cameras. Motorola, also, we have a deep partnership with them. We're doing lots of things with Motorola for the first responder technology side, but also in all of the Motorola solutions, CAD, call handling, mapping, you name it. Partnerships are key, and I think that we have to collaborate in this industry and share information to ease that stress for you decision makers, right? So just very briefly, verbal communication of data can be slow. And if you can read information, you can make decisions much quicker. So y'all probably read some of those slides faster and you're like, Karen, let's get to it. Let's just go to the next slide, right? We know that verbal communication can be slow, and we just kind of need to get on with our jobs and be able to handle the next emergency that's coming in, because our world doesn't stop. Also wanted to just highlight a couple of different multimedia solutions and tools as well that you may have access to or heard. CRG is a company that's actually done a lot of training here in the state of Colorado. Some of my SWAT team guys from back at Westminster attended training with CRG at Douglas County. And so Douglas County, you all may be utilizing this technology with your SWAT units today, where they have gone out and mapped certain locations. It might be a school or a place of worship. What they'll do is kind of walk that building, turn that map true north, and apply a grid reference system on top of that map. It is all coming from the military special operations team members. This technology that CRG uses, creating CRGs, they're the only ones that actually can do this technology. But then what it does is brings everybody to a common operating picture. So dispatch and field units, and everyone is now speaking a common operating language. And apologies, I'm not going to actually sign into that. So common operating language. SWAT team will typically use a 1, 2, 3, 4 point. Fire uses A, B, C, D, and dispatch has to adapt to what they're saying out in the field to start marking their map. This brings us all together, speaking the same language, knowing where family reunification may be, understanding where we might want to stage strike forces or ambulances, whatever that might be. Common operating language in emergency situations really is key, especially when you start bringing in mutual aid units. So having agencies that don't normally come into your area, may not speak your language, are now speaking your language. We're going to go meet at the auditorium, Grid Square G3. Now everybody can see that visually and make some pretty smart decisions. Let's see. Okay, here's the next one. 911, so we know there's a lot of video into 911 or the ability to receive that first party information. This, I just want to highlight that visual information doesn't always have to be scary. It doesn't always have to lead to additional stress. When you can actually see what a caller is trying to describe, I think that, at least for me, it would have helped to not make the bad situation in my head worse by imagining what's happening, because I'm going to imagine a worst case scenario, but actually seeing the situation, saying, oh, okay, now it's painted a clearer picture for me. I know what they're talking about. I know where they're talking about this. And now I can provide this information to my field responders. And beyond that, I can actually send this same image, the same video out to my field responders. So now we're all looking at the same thing as decisions are being made in that response. And we know that there's a lot of different tools and solutions for that. So
can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think 911 telecommunicators will make a worse image in their head than the one that will usually be available through the app. But I know that a lot of 911 centers have said that they are not ready for images being presented to their telecommunicators. Is that something that can be turned off or on per PSAP, or is that if you've got Rapid SOS, you're going to get these images from 911i?
No, not at all. So it is something that, number one, you can create a role for certain people in your organization to even have access to send a request for video. But once you have the access to do that, you're not just going to have information and images pop up. You are making a decision to send this link out to that person based on your training and policies, and then you would have the access to see that video. So nothing happens automatically. And I think too, Daryl, the point that I'm making here is when I know that I'm sending a link and I'm about to ask for video, I already know what's going on in this case. I've already heard maybe the fight, the disturbance, whatever it might be, or I don't understand what this caller is trying to tell me at all. It doesn't make sense. So I'm going to get a clear picture by sending this link out and opening that video. And so I think with that choice, we're also preparing our mind to absorb information instead of just I think what we've assumed in 911 is that images are just going to show up, shock me, scare me, and then I'm going to be frozen.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And then additional, yes, Cheryl.
I'm not getting that. I have a question for you. Have you contacted the Colorado Mental Health?
So I did speak with some of the folks. We had a small group initially that were chatting about different mental health resources. I introduced them to Vitals, the application, and we're looking to connect them to Vitals as well to kind of make sure that they are aware of different tools and applications that are available. Additionally, we always want to do more, and sometimes it might take the community to make sure that we have a seat at the table too, to help support all of the different tools that are available to community members to send this information in. So if we can support anyone with mental health or any other invisible condition, we're happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And if you want to chat any additional issues, concerns, struggles, challenges that you're facing in the center, I also I'm going to go through these ones really quickly. We know the benefits. You all know this better than me, so I'm just going to go to this last one. Outages are occurring. I know, Daryl, you've talked about a lot of outages here in Colorado. We've seen them in other states. If at anything you log in to the free tool that you have at your fingertips, as a backup for redundancy, please, 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 we are asking you to do that, because you may not know that a specific carrier is experiencing an outage. You may not know that your area is experiencing an outage until somebody reports that there's a busy signal, or something happens that says, why is 911 not answering the phone? So in your Rapid SOS portal, you will still be able to see those calls plotting on your map if you have jurisdiction view. So you'll notice the calls coming in on your map, but the phone's not ringing. That's going to indicate and give you a clue that something's wrong, right? This also gives you the ability to see the phone numbers, to have location information and any other additional data that's available for that phone number, so that you can do your outgoing calls. You can start to triage those calls, and hopefully you don't miss some of those life-saving calls that have come in. So this is just a story about an outage in St. Paul, Minnesota. I know that here in Colorado, we had some issues with the Marshall Fire, where a fiber line was affected and impacted. There were outages in the state of Virginia just last week in 3 different counties. The Nashville bombing took down areas across 3 different states, in some cases for 3 weeks, and that this was the only tool that they had available to really understand who was trying to call 911. So again, I just really want to highlight the fact that you never know when an outage is going to occur. Be prepared, be logged in, and be ready so that you can respond to those emergency calls for help, because that doesn't stop when an outage occurs. And I'll go to questions from there, Daryl.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Karen?
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Joe Benkert. So you were going through all these different applications that different providers and vendors and kind of like the delivery services have. Do dispatchers need to be familiar with all of these, or is the information provided in kind of a similar way with the same information in the same places on the screen so that the dispatch, it's transparent for the dispatcher?
So that's a great question, Joe. They can know as much as they want to about any data provider. We will give you training information on every single one of those providers so that you understand the use case for it and how the data is going to display. What our team does is we work really hard with our internal stakeholders and with our agencies to make sure that if it's profile information, it's being viewed in a consistent format. If it's vehicle telematic information, it's coming in a consistent format so that the dispatchers aren't always having to hunt with their eyes for specific information. If that data is there, the card is going to read in an organized fashion. And so we really want to encourage that muscle memory and that training, but they have to click on that phone number to see that data.
Yeah, I think the concern is eventually you'll have enough different apps and service type things that a dispatcher can conceivably keep up with all of them.
Absolutely. And that's why we want to aggregate that information for them so their experience is always consistent.
Thanks.
Thank you, Joe.
Erin, hi, this is Mandy with Westco.
Hey.
I have a question. With the portal and access to the data, what happens in the event that a call taker must pause the current call and answer another call? Is there a way, and forgive me since I haven't sat on console for a minute, is there a way for them to go back and retain that information, and is that while they were on the other call being saved as well? You know, just like, you know, if we take it back to the analog phone system, we place a call on hold, it's still being recorded in the background. We answer another call, that scenario.
Yeah, so Mandy, you have jurisdiction view. So you're going to see in the left-hand column a list of phone numbers that are displayed. That's your call queue. And when the telecommunicator clicks on any one of those calls, the map display will change to the location for the call that's selected. Additionally, in that middle pane, all of the additional information is displayed. If a telecommunicator needs to look at another call, they simply click on whatever call in the queue they want to look at, and they can toggle back and forth. That information will be available for 30 minutes or 51 calls. So 30 minutes from last activity, so last time they clicked, or 51 calls. If there's a long call, because sometimes in different areas, it may take you 45 minutes to get on scene, you can very easily open that information up in a next tab and monitor that situation while you toggle back and forth through that queue.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Karen, it's Bruce.
Hi, Bruce. Welcome.
Thank you. Hey, I just wanted to highlight an email that Daryl sent out last week about an outage in Southeast Colorado that I was part of on the distribution list, and that kicked off an effort within Rapid SOS. And I apologize if you already highlighted this, but I was taking off, coming back from Calnina in San Diego, received the message about the outage in Southeast Colorado, put that out to the Rapid SOS team, and just the team started doing a little research, found out that one of the PSAPs affected was without a Rapid SOS account or jurisdiction view. So within hours, we were able to load their jurisdictional boundary file and get them up on Rapid SOS portal. So they were able to do just what Karen was describing as a backup scenario to deal with any wireless 911 calls that were coming in.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that, Bruce, because I did not. There have been several occasions where agencies that were impacted didn't actually have an account. And so we want to do everything in our power to make sure that you are back up and running as soon as possible. And so we work very closely with our providers to get access to that data as quickly as possible. We've done different kinds of things for hurricanes and other natural disasters, fires, even here in Larimer County and in Boulder County. So if there's anything that you're experiencing, any kind of an emergency and you need location, or just you wonder if maybe Rapid SOS can help you, please know that we are here first and foremost to serve the 911 community. And so we may not have the answer, but we may know our community of partners that does. All right.
I do. This is Cheryl.
Hey, Cheryl.
Have you noticed a rise or lowering of people signing up? Oh, signing up because it's known that people with disabilities say it's a register. It's a what, Joe? Is that register?
Like if there's somewhere you can register and kind of flag that maybe the person in this residence is nonverbal.
What? No, I'm saying not everyone will sign up because they said, oh, or they think that it's a registry. And they don't want to be on a registry.
Oh, I see. So folks that may not sign up for a profile to provide that information may not do so because they feel it's a database or registry and they want to be secure. Okay. I certainly understand that. I know that Vitals is working on some initiatives to work within the different communities to make sure that they're addressing accessibility at all levels. Whatever that accessibility concern may be, they want to make sure that they're providing a tool. So I think that's where we'll deepen our relationship with Vitals for community members. And sometimes maybe it's education, if we can help with education and provide security there.
All right, thank you.
Sure. The last thing I wanted to highlight is you all may have seen a news story locally this week announcing a new partnership with Rapid SOS from a company called eBodyguard. And I know that many of you are familiar with eBodyguard and Melissa Hart. So this is, like I said, a new partnership. We're going to be bringing that data in through Rapid SOS platform. If anyone would like further information, I will direct you to Bruce and Sam. Of course, I'm here too, but now that he's on the line, I can throw him under the bus a bit more.
Just don't back up.
And then, of course, any other questions, just know you've got your team here in Colorado. We're all local. Let's hang out and educate and make sure that everybody knows how to use their tools. Kimberly, go ahead.
So Karen and team, I think this is Kimberly. Karen and team, I think from the news coverage on that eBodyguard, I'm sure probably a lot of us are looking for additional information. It gives me some a little less anxiety knowing that there's a partnership now with Rapid SOS in that, because the last thing we need is one more over-the-top app to monitor or one more over-the-top app to figure out how we're going to see the data, manage the data coming in. So maybe we can set up a special task force presentation that focuses just on that piece.
Yeah. I would
Because I don't think I'm alone going, I'm not sure how to take this next step. And now there's all of this public coverage on it. And so we're obviously wanting to be prepared for it. But, so we need to understand that interface with Rapid SOS.
And this is Daryl. We had a presentation from Melissa Hart. I can't remember. It wasn't that long ago. I want to say 5 months ago, something like that. Or maybe 3 meetings ago. But things have changed, and I know they've expanded their relationship with Rapid SOS. So if there's a desire for it, I can get a hold of Melissa Hart, and I'm sure she'd be happy to do another presentation to the task force.
I would say, yeah. Sorry, Kimberly, go ahead.
Sorry, this is Kimberly. I would say yes, from a rapid SOS perspective, and nothing against the eBodyguard, but we would like to try to navigate this through rapid SOS if that's possible, just because we already have that relationship with them. And it's similar to maybe the 911i, where we're navigating that through rapid SOS as part of the application, even though we had to have another conversation with the 911i folks, but we started with rapid SOS. So Karen, is that how this should go with this partnership you have?
So I will say the announcement was launched, the tech is not completed. So what I would like to do before I answer that question, Kimberly, is make sure that we have those answers internally and understand once that tech is done, ready to go. And I do think it's live, but I am not comfortable enough to say that I have the information to provide you. So let Bruce and I go back. We'll do a little bit of internal research. I don't believe that you actually have to do anything with them directly. I think it all can be worked out through us, enabling that data on the back end. But let's just go through, Bruce, and double check that internally so that we do have the answers, and we can do a little presentation on how it works, what that flow is, how agencies receive that data, because I'm just not versed on it and comfortable to give a thorough training.
This is Kimberly, and that's completely understandable and fine. So we'll wait for that follow-up, but that would be the next step that I would like to see, is something from Rapid SOS, just explaining how we can leverage, receive that data, so then we can respond to it correctly with, again, not adding one more over the top app into the 911 solution.
And this is Daryl. I see Mandy has her hand up too, but just before we get to that, maybe one way to approach this would be not focusing just on eBodyguard, but there are a number of other apps out there that I think are going to be commonly sending information through Rapid SOS to the center. So maybe we could set up maybe like a 2-hour demonstration where different apps are demonstrated and how they come through on Rapid SOS and how they display in the 911 center. I'm thinking of like the Vitals app, I think is probably one that would be very, very much in the same line as eBodyguard. Karen, do you think that's something that we could set up with Rapid SOS?
Absolutely. Our partners would love to do something like that. I'll also add that Vitals is working right now on a pilot with Fort Collins Police Department. And so, Kimberly, I think we did let you know about all of that.
This is Kimberly. Yes, you did. And Fort Collins is going live with that, and we're trying to get our arms around how all that folds in too. So there's definitely a gap there, especially when something is started through a Vitals channel versus the Rapid SOS channel, and then building the expectation of how that data will then be presented into dispatch.
Yeah, I'm happy to, let's plan some time. We'll bring in some of our partners, show how that data works. In the interim, I would say we can do the eBodyguard piece in the next couple of weeks. And Mandy, I know you have a question. I also want to say in Rapid SOS portal, if you go into the admin tab, if there's any data that you do not want to see or you're not ready for, you can turn it off. Or you can create a role where maybe 1 or 2 people can see that data. So yes, there is also that community messaging piece that goes into that, but you do have the ability to turn sources off. Amanda.
Thank you. This is Mandy with Wesco. Karen, I guess with all the introductions of and partnerships that Rapid is growing, it's helpful to the PSAPs and the ECSs to have the data to get a better response from public safety. However, my concern is what happens when similar data streams are flowing through the portal from your providers or your partners, and how is that, do you anticipate impacting the ECSs? Particularly, you started your presentation with, our biggest concern is retention and recruitment at this point. And, if we get eBodyguard providing live video streaming, we have 911i providing live video, and all the others out there, I feel like this is it's difficult to integrate all that information, let alone onto one screen or one platform. And what's Rapid's view on that in the future?
So what we are hearing from 911 centers, and Bruce, step in here anywhere you want, is that people do want everything integrated on one screen because there have been so many different applications that were accessible through, you know, this over-the-top application or on this screen over here that we used to use. They are asking us, and actually this is driving what we call Rapid SOS Premium that I didn't really talk about, but it's going to be coming, where we can put all of that data on one map so we can start to absorb information and gain more situational awareness. So if I have a 911 call with crash information in one area, and maybe I have the ability to have some camera footage in that area, what can I see and how can I make decisions based on that information? I don't think that there is an expectation on anyone that you are going to use all of those pieces of information every single call. Sometimes that person that's giving you the voice call has the best, most accurate information, and that's okay. And that has to be okay. But as we try to recruit new staff members, as we look at different roles and positions that may come into our 911 center to even be that bridge between 911 and a real-time crime center, we're seeing that there are these like analyst positions that are starting up that are absorbing all of the supplemental data, and they're supporting that call taker, supporting the dispatcher, and even supporting the field. And that's all they do is look at these tools, look at the data, and see how they can add this to CAD for the call. So I think growing, we're going to see a lot more of that, Mandy. You know, certainly there's not a one size fits all answer, and there's not a one size fits all application. So your policies, procedure, training, we're going to still continue to learn from you as well so that we can help navigate that world for you too. Bruce, do you want to add something? I saw you just answered a question in the chat.
Yeah, I was just responding to Carl asking if the road show was going to go over some of this, and certainly we will go over some of it, but we will be able to have time to briefly touch on some of those partnerships in the road show. We'll be talking about all things Rapid SOS, portal, jurisdiction view, some of our partnerships, a new offering we have called Premium. So I don't know that we would have the time to go in depth on things like eBodyguard or 911i to give you any depth of knowledge on those during those calls.
Mandy, I don't know if that helped, but I think for the future, we're learning along with you and just trying to aggregate.
No, it helped. And, you know, I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot. I appreciate your response, and thank you for all that you've done.
This is Bruce, and Mandy, I will say that we know data is not going away, right? It's going to keep coming at you. I think the best that we can do is to drive it to one spot, to have one authoritative location that you always know you go to gather the data that you need for the calls. That doesn't answer the question of how much effect this is going to have on your people. That's going to continue to evolve, and what we do for our people to make sure that they have what they need to take care of their mental and physical well-being is there. But we know that this world is just continuing to create more and more data, and that does not change anything in 911. It will continue to grow here as well.
This is Cheryl. Yeah.
Hey, Cheryl.
Yeah. Are you including people with disabilities in development?
We have talked about it, and we have not at this time. We do have one of our engineers who has been kind of our accessibility voice. He is an absolutely amazing advocate for folks with disability, but that is an area that we're not strong on yet. And so I know that there's more work that we certainly can be doing and making sure that we have partnerships to bring better information in. And certainly once we are at that point, Cheryl, I think you're a great resource to tap into.
Stay on. Stay on the link. After you finish. I have information for you in my report.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Cheryl. I also just wanted to add that we have one of the other RapidSOS team members, and so I don't want to leave him out. Dave Sainert is on here as well. For those of you who do not know Dave, he is a wealth of knowledge and information, and he's focused on our partnerships as well as emergency data exchange, which we may be talking a little bit more about in the roadshow. But think about the need to send this data to different places, right? We need to use industry standards, so an EIDO, and Dave can talk more about that. But you are going to hear more from RapidSOS on how do we get that data from one place to another, kind of like a CAD to CAD, but actually I think it's going to be a lot more enhanced in making sure the data flows to all the right users through their disparate systems, and we're going to be driving that. So stand by for more.
This is Scott. Thank you for that, Karen. I see, Joe, you have your hand up still. Do you have another follow-up question or just haven't lowered it?
Well, I had a comment that there seems to be so much information here that these might be good topics for our off-month lunch and learns, or even additional lunch and learns, or if we get to doing the annual summits again, even on a virtual basis, you know, where we could really, you know, dig into more depth on these topics.
Right. Well, thank you all for your time, and I'm going to stay on for the reports.
Thank you, Karen. And Cheryl, I just see, this is Scott. I see that Cheryl, you just waved your hands. Do you have any other comments?
No, I'm saying bye.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. Appreciate it. So moving on to standing reports, Daryl, can you provide a PUC staff update, please?
Sure. So when I wrote this, I said the current goal is to issue a draft 911 reliability rules, issue draft 911 reliability rules by March 9th. I'm happy to report that yesterday the commission did approve for that to move forward. Commission council is still putting the final touches on the commission decision that has to go out with those draft rules. So be watching for that. As soon as that does go out, I'll let everyone know over the email list what the comment deadlines are and when the hearing will be scheduled for that. FCC proceedings on January 19th, the FCC issued a public notice, and if you have a copy of the standing report from the folder for today's meeting, there's a link to that public notice calling for comments regarding potential safeguards that could be put in place to protect the confidentiality of information in the commission's outage reporting systems. They have two systems. One's called the Network Outage Reporting System, or NORS, and the Disaster Information Reporting System, or DIRS. The commission has previously committed to start providing read-only access to those outage databases to states and potentially local governments as well, I believe, starting in September of this year. And so they're asking people if there are potential safeguards that need to be put in place to keep the information confidential and keep the information from accidentally being modified, although I think it is read-only access, so I don't think that's really an issue. But the deadline for comment was issued. It was March 9th. It was yesterday. But I believe if you go ahead and file comments, they may still take those into consideration, since it's not an official rulemaking or something along those lines that have hard comment due dates. I'm not aware of any 911 related bills at this time. If anyone learns of any that I've missed, please let me know. I do know, I have learned from Jackie Louise that a bill on 911 abuse, 911 system abuse, people using 911 to harass or otherwise not report an actual emergency, may be introduced fairly soon from Representative McCluskey, so we'll be watching for that. And I know that the legislative committee has been working hard on that, so all of the language that is being proposed came from that legislative committee, which is good. There has been no substantive movement on any 911 related bills in Congress that I'm aware of. If anybody knows of any, let me know. A lot have been introduced over the course of the last year and a half during this congressional session, but unfortunately, I don't think any of those have moved forward, or fortunately, depending on the bill. As far as I know, the Build Back Better bill, which had $475 million for 911 in federal 911 grants in it, there's not been any further movement with that. There has been talk about potentially taking that section out and offering it as a standalone bill, but I have not heard any further movement on that either, unless anybody has anything they know that they would like to share. So since I just talked about the state legislature and the federal legislature, if there's anybody, I'll pause right now and see if anybody's aware of anything that I did not include in my report on those items. Okay, not hearing anything. Implementation of the state 911 surcharge and flat wireless prepaid 911 surcharge. State 911 surcharge distributions in January were $619,633.94. In February, they were $658,000, $58,584.20. The commission, just so everyone is aware, the commission is authorized under the statute to take 4% off of the top of whatever's collected from that 911 surcharge distribution to pay our costs related to the collection and distribution of those surcharge funds. We can't use the money for anything else. We're only allowed to use it to recover our costs for collecting and distributing those funds. We have built up a fair amount of a cushion in the administrative fund we have for that purpose. So because of that, we have turned off our 4% administrative fees. So that 4% we were taking to put in an administrative fund to cover our costs, that is now being distributed to the 911 governing bodies. So 100% of the funds collected through the state 911 surcharge are being distributed until we spend down that administrative fund somewhat. And then when we do turn it back on, we'll probably turn it on at a lower rate at maybe 1 or 2% instead of the full 4%. Also, the 911 surcharge rate went from 10 cents per month in 2021 to 9 cents per month in 2022. You might see a slight decrease in your 911 surcharge distribution starting in March as a result of that. Then again, you might not, simply because we're also not taking our 4% administrative overhead cost anymore. So you might not really notice a difference in the distributions, but I did want to let you know that change, it took place in January, but because there's a 2-month delay between the time that the customer pays that surcharge fee and the time that it's distributed to the governing bodies, that change won't show up until this month. Next week, roughly, is when those funds will go out to everybody. Prepaid 911 charge distributions for January, they were $1,011,436. For February, they were $1,073,481. That was based on a $1.38 per transaction flat prepaid wireless charge. That went up to $1.63 starting in January. So starting this month, you should see an increase I calculated roughly $1.18 million per month statewide. So this is, and I must have miscalculated that because that doesn't make any sense. I will recalculate that and I will send it out to everybody because that doesn't make sense. But maybe that's per year. I will calculate that and figure out what the increase is likely to be. But you should start seeing an increase in that this month from that increase from $1.38 to $1.63. Deadlines coming up that everybody should be aware of. July 1st is the last day that you can file an application with the commission for an increase in the number of concurrent sessions for reimbursement beginning in 2023. Earlier is better in case there are any issues with your application. The application has to be approved by the commission by August 1st. And because there's a 30-day comment period on all applications that are filed with the commission, that means July 1st is really the deadline to get an application filed with the commission. Applications filed after that date will still be considered, but they may not be reflected in your distribution starting in 2023. They may actually wait until 2024 before you start seeing distributions from those additional concurrent sessions. So it's really in your best interest to stay on top of that and get that application in. Again, that only applies if you are increasing the number of concurrent sessions that you are purchasing from CenturyLink, which I think is a fairly rare change, but does happen. So make sure that you do file that with the commission so that you can get credit for those with next year's distributions. And then November 1st will be the last date that you can file an application with the commission to increase your emergency telephone charge for an effective date. And I have June 1st. What I really mean is February 1st for a February 1st effective date. So the statute requires that effective dates for new emergency telephone charge rates be February 1st or June 1st. To make the February 1st effective date, November 1st is the last day that you could file it with the commission, have any hope of it being effective by February 1st. The reason for that is, again, there's a 30-day comment period on all applications. Plus, in the case of emergency telephone charges, you have to give 60 days notice after it's approved by the commission. You have to give 60 days notice to the carrier. So that builds in a full 90 days that you have to get it in there. Again, sooner is better. November 1st is the absolute drop dead that you could possibly file it and have any hope of it getting approved in time for a February 1st effective date. But if you get it filed sooner than that, that's better in case there are any problems with the application or delays. And I do have a link on the report to where both of the applications for concurrent session increases and for an emergency telephone charge increase can be found on the commission's website. And with that, I will stand open for any questions that anybody may have regarding what I've covered.
Daryl, this is Holly.
Yes,
Do you
Holly.
just maybe want to mention the training that you're going to do on the application process?
Oh,
since
yes,
We've got
thank
these
you.
folks on the phone.
Thank you, Holly. I did send notice out to all of the primary contacts for all of the 911 authorities, but if you didn't get it and you were interested in participating, we are holding a 1.5-hour webinar on Monday. The first half hour will be to go over this year's annual data collection process. So the commission collects data from the governing bodies on an annual basis, primarily for responding to federal data requests from the Federal Communications Commission, as well as the National 911 Program Office, but also for the commission's own report to the legislature that we do on it, that we're required to do on an annual basis on the state of 911 service in the state. And then the rest of the webinar will be a refresher on how to file an application with the commission for an emergency telephone charge increase. So if you think that you may be filing for an ETC increase over the next year, I would highly recommend that you try to attend. But if you can't attend, it's also going to be recorded. And after it's recorded, we're going to put a link to the recording on the website to direct people to. So if in the future, if people have questions, how do I file an application to increase or change my emergency telephone charge rate, we'll have that resource available for you. So thank you, Holly, for reminding me that. Anybody else?
And Daryl, this is Scott. Billy Allen posted a question in the chat.
With regards to relevant bill to 911, last year we had the nurse intake of 911 calls passed, but shows implementation on or before January 2022. I don't have any information on that. Is actually, I'm trying to remember which agency has the lead on that, whether it's Department of Public Safety or Human Services. Does anybody else know who's taking the lead on that and what the status of that trial program is? Does anybody know who was awarded or if those has been awarded? Doesn't sound like it. So Billy, I'll follow up on that and see which state agency has the lead on that. What the bill was is it allowed for, it was really a pilot program. It allowed for a state agency to have funds and pick 3 local 911 centers to serve as the trial for a nurse intake program where calls could be vetted by a nurse intake service medical call specifically to find out if they really needed an emergency response, or if they could receive nursing advice over the phone. I will find out what the status of that is and when they're going to open that up, because apparently they haven't opened it up to applications yet from 911 centers that may wish to participate. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you.
This is Scott. Thank you, Daryl, for the report. Moving on to the BESP report from Lumen.
This is Holly, real quick. I'm so sorry. It looks like it was a direct message to me, but Cheryl is asking if she can do her access report because she has to leave soon.
Certainly, I have no problem with that. This is Scott again. Cheryl, if you would like to do your access report now, please do so.
Earl, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
And this is Scott. Cheryl, we certainly can let you go earlier. Why don't we, you might be having some audio problems. Why don't we ask for a BESP report from Lumen, and then we'll circle back to Cheryl.
Thanks, Scott. This is Tim. I don't have anything more to add from what we talked about on the users group meeting yesterday, but I just wanted to highlight it again here for everybody. We are working on the tariff change to add the ECATS reporting tool. I did get some feedback from some folks, so I appreciate that. And I'm working on having a draft released for folks. My goal is next week sometime, hopefully by maybe the middle towards the end of the week. But I'll have that available for folks to look at, and we had some good questions and some good conversation yesterday on the user group about timing of things and such. So I'll at least get a draft for us to work from, and then we can talk about timing and some of the issues that we raised yesterday, such as folks that already have an existing agreement and things like that. So more to come on that, but I just wanted to let you know where I was at on that process. That's all I have.
So Scott, thank you for that report. Tim, does the group have any questions for Tim? Okay, hearing none, we will go back again. Cheryl and Gil, if you would like to, if you're able to speak, can you give your presentation? Still shows Cheryl as being muted. So they may be having computer problems because she did have her video on earlier as well, and now no longer does. So Cheryl and Gil, if you were able to hear us, if you were able to reestablish connection, please let me know, and we will certainly jump to your item so that you can leave. So moving on to, I'm sorry, Daryl, were you about to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to, Nick Brown actually sent me the page. This is from the Colorado Division of Homeland Security Emergency Management Nurses and 911 Grant Programs. Looks like they already had the competitive bidding to participate as a trial site for that program. Aurora 911, Freecom 911, Pueblo Fire Department, and Ute. I assume that's the Ute. What says Ute Pass Regional HSD. I'm not sure what that is. So I'll put the link to that page in the chat if it is the same program we're talking about, and I think it is. Then hopefully people can follow up on that.
This is Scott. Thank you, Daryl. I have not been able to speak with Tina Bonetta on this particular topic, so I will also ask her if she can attend the next meeting and provide an update specifically from Aurora's perspective on that program as well.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Moving on, BESP report for Entrado.
Scott, it's Mary Jane. I don't have anything to report today. Thank you.
This is Scott. Thank you, Mary Jane. Appreciate it. Then we'll move on to the Bylaws Committee, Kimberly Cole.
This is Kimberly, and we do not have any bylaws changes or recommendations for the committee to consider.
This is Scott. Thank you, Kimberly. We will move on to Legislative Committee. Jackie Louise, I know you have some exciting news you would like to share.
Good morning, this is Jackie. Yes, I heard from the representative this week, and they are taking our bill that we had sent to them to the drafter. It can take up to a few weeks, she said, to get anything back out of the draft. And then from there, we'll move forward with getting a second representative in the House and then Senate representatives. In the past, Representative McCluskey has been really good about getting all her partners. So we'll have to wait and see what she has to say about that. And I did send out an email letting everybody know I would be gone April 4th to 19th with limited access to my email. And so I have had several people volunteer to help. So what I thought I'd do is maybe the last week in March is just hold a quick meeting to kind of get people in place and make sure everybody has a role and knows what to do, because I just don't want to miss anything while I'm gone. So I will set up a meeting, and Daryl, I'll get with you to help me set that meeting up. Any questions for me?
Just congratulations.
Thank you. I was very excited to hear from them.
And this is Scott. Thank you very much, Jackie. Did anybody else have any questions for Jackie?
Scott, this is Kimberly. I can't find my hand to raise. So I'm going to jump in, but Jackie, I know that we've been involved, and specifically one of our PSAPs as it relates to the impact of the misuse of 911. So while you're out, I know Carl's going to jump in and assist, but we're happy to as well. So whatever's needed, just count us in, and please know that we'll work hard to help this at least get introduced into committee.
Thank you, Kimberly. And I definitely have Tracy on my list for that as well.
And this is Scott. Thank you for that, Kimberly, as well. I will move on one more time. I still show that Cheryl and Gil are both video and audio muted. I did private message them and ask them to let me know when they are reconnected. We can move to their report. So we will go on to the next item, Outage Committee, Daryl.
Let me pull up the outage dashboard. So as mentioned earlier today, that we did have a large multi 911 center outage in Southeast Colorado, really just a little over a week ago. It was on the 2nd of March. We're going to be doing a special investigation, or I've initiated a special investigation into that. Just to recap for everybody, the outage committee created a set of criteria, and any basic emergency service outages that meet those criteria automatically get a special investigation form started for them. It does require participation from the affected 911 centers. So if they don't want to participate, then we put it to bed fairly early. But if they do want to participate and they do have questions, we facilitate a conversation between CenturyLink and the affected 911 centers. And members of the outage committee can also submit additional questions and participate in that conversation as well. Going down, now, one thing I do need to report to people is that the outage dashboard only shows outages after they are labeled as closed. So if they are recategorized as something other than basic emergency service, or if they're not closed yet, they don't show up in the charts that are on this page. So you have to kind of be patient and look at previous months. But so far, we don't have any that meet those criteria to show up. But we have had a couple of outages so far this year that may end up being registered in this 2022 bar chart. So we don't really have any data to show for comparison to previous years, or if we look at as of this date in previous years, that's also not very helpful this early on in the year. But I do want to just remind people that this dashboard exists. So if you're ever curious, especially later on in the year when we do have more data for 2022 to compare to previous years, this would be a good time to go and look at this dashboard. But since we're still fairly early on in the year, I don't have any substantive data to show everybody. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those. All right, thank you.
And this is Scott. Thank you, Daryl, for the report. We'll move on to prepaid and collections. Jackie.
Oh, again, this is Jackie. I don't have anything at this point, but I am looking forward to trying to get the end of the year numbers for 2021 out of our current reporting system. I want to just see what they look like. And then hopefully as ECATS comes online, we'll be able to get some good numbers and really delve into how we're distributing that prepaid monies. And that's all I have for that.
And this is Scott. Thank you, Jackie. Any questions for Jackie?
And Jackie, this is Daryl. Just so you're aware, I have been collecting data on call volume from all of the 911 centers through the current Intrado user portal. I'm hoping ECATS will make that easier when we get that implemented. But as of right now, that's what I'm doing and tabulating that into a master spreadsheet instead of using the ALI retrieval reports.
Great. Well, I'll get together with you and look at that data. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
This is Scott. Hi, Cheryl. We can hear you now. If you'd like to proceed with your report, please do so.
Thank you. Sorry for that.
Hi, Gil. I apologize. This is Scott. We can hear Cheryl really loudly, but we can barely hear you at all, Gil. Can you get a little bit closer to the microphone, please?
Yeah, let me get her. Let me shove her out of the way. Oh, is that better?
That's much better. Thank you.
Anyway, Cheryl has something here typed that she wants me to read. It says, greetings all. Regarding our 911 Equal Access Committee report. For our last meeting, January 27th, we had Laura Eller present. It was how to prepare for power outages when you have electrical, medical, durable equipment. It was very informative. She was representing United Power. So the Cheryl continues. The 2022 SEMA conference was a success. About 500.
This is Scott. I'm sorry, Gil. Once again, we can barely hear you.
Okay. Okay. She says. One moment.
Certainly.
She says the 2022 SEMA conference was a success. There were about 500 in attendance, and Gil and I remained COVID-free. Daryl presented on Colorado involving 911 service. Thank you, Daryl. I had a meeting with Mark Lucero with FEMA's IPAWS chief engineer. We discussed how to improve IPAWS and how to be more inclusive. I am working directly with that group to improve their delivery methods. Also coming up is the DPS. DPS is asking for your input on a new 911 emergency response system being developed for the state of Colorado. At 10:30 a.m. on Friday, March 18th. They're wanting there's going to be a meeting at 10:30 on Friday, March 18th by way of Zoom. And Daryl, can he what? Or Holly, can you what? Can you explain the meeting? Daryl or Holly, can you explain what that meeting is all about for the rest of the group?
Can you remind me which meeting we're talking about?
This is Holly. I can explain. So the Department of Public Safety, for probably the last 2+ years, because I know this started back pre-COVID, they have been working on a dispatcher and crisis intervention collaboration, where they are trying to come up with processes and alternatives for individuals who are experiencing mental health crises on how they can get services that don't necessarily involve police. And so the meeting that Cheryl is talking about is not a meeting to talk about a new 911 system. Unfortunately, that flyer was misworded a bit, but rather it's to discuss what the disability community is looking for in terms of getting access. And when I say disability community, I think specifically for this meeting, they're talking about those who are involved in the mental health world, and for individuals who may be experiencing a mental health crisis and need emergency services. So that is just a really brief explanation of what this group is doing. They're just trying to put processes in place for ensuring that people who have mental health needs have access to emergency services that do not necessarily put them in harm's way if police show up. So that's an ongoing process, and the meeting on March 18th is to solicit feedback from representatives in the disability community.
Cheryl says it's a Zoom meeting. And go, what else, Cheryl? I have the link in the report. So where do you want? What else, Cheryl? Where did you want me to start in? Please help us. What? Okay. Cheryl is saying, please help us improve emergency response communications by joining an open community meeting 1 week from tomorrow on Friday, March 18th. Is that the one you're referencing? Okay. From 10:30 until 11:30 via Zoom. Here is the Zoom link to join. And do you have that elsewhere? Okay. It's us02web.zoom. So it's in the, Cheryl says she has it out there already. We will, moving on. The whole community state AFN group is holding their conference April 13th and 14th in Estes. It'll be and then here's some information here. It's at the Ridgeline Hotel in Estes Park. The address is 101 South St. Vrain Avenue. And that would be, and let me know if you're interested in going. And just, okay, anything else? Your next meeting will be March 31st from 2 to 3:30. From 2 to 3:30. And I'm hoping to have, Penny. Hoping to have what, Cheryl? Hoping to have our presentation with,
Peggy.
is it Peggy? Sure. Oh, yes, you're right. Okay, thank you. And I guess that's it. Anything else, Cheryl, that you want to add to that? That I may have fumbled too badly on? I apologize for the computer glitch there. We couldn't get on for a while. Anyway, that's all the report. Go ahead.
This is Daryl. If I can add something on that meeting that's happening to get input from the disability community on 911 response. I believe it is an open meeting, and I don't think there's any problem with with 911 community members joining that meeting. My understanding is the primary purpose of the meeting was to get input from the disability community. So just to keep that in mind, and it might be best to be mostly in listening mode during that meeting. It would be a great opportunity to hear directly from members of that community as to what their concerns are regarding 911 and police response. But I just worry that we might inadvertently overrule or shut down that process of getting input from those community members. So just if anybody joins, I just ask them to keep that in mind.
And this is Scott. Thank you for that, Daryl. And thank you, Cheryl and Gil, both for the presentation. No need to apologize. Computers have a mind of their own sometimes. So thank you. Moving on to the next item in the agenda, we'll find where we were left off. Reports committee, Daryl.
Yes, so every other task force meeting, the commission or the task force approves a report to be filed with the commission. I sent a draft copy of this report out to the reports committee. They provided their input. And then I sent a copy out to the full task force so that hopefully everyone had a chance to look at it prior to today's meeting. I can pull it up if anybody has any particular questions or sections that they want to talk about. Otherwise, Scott, I would suggest that maybe we open it up for a motion to approve the report so that I can get it filed with the commission following today's meeting.
And this is Scott. Thank you, Daryl. Do we have a motion to approve this item and move it forward for the next presentation of the PUC?
This is Carl. I'd make that motion.
And this is Scott. Thank you, Carl. Do we have a second?
This is Jackie Dadcom, I'll second.
And this is Scott. Thank you, Jackie. Any discussion on the item? And hearing none, any opposed to moving this forward for a presentation, please indicate so now. And hearing none, thank you, Daryl, for putting that together. Appreciate it. And looks like you can move forward.
Thank you.
This is still Scott. We will now move on to the ESINet users group item, Kimberly.
So exciting news. It's no longer me. I get to hand this off to Tina, which is fantastic. So one of the bigger items is this, and we were able to pass the baton. And Tina is now the chair of that group. And we had a meeting yesterday. So Tina, are you able to give an update? I don't know if you were expecting it, so I don't want to put you on the spot there.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure what kind of update you give, but I would be happy to do that.
Yeah, typically, this is Kimberly. Typically, Tina, I just give a quick summary of items we're tackling, outstanding items, and just an overall health of the ESINet.
Okay, I can give a few things. This is Tina. And then Kimberly, if there's anything I miss, feel free to jump in. Give me just 1 second. All right, a few of the things that we went over yesterday. We do have the 3 military installations that still don't have their installs completed, but those are being worked on. I believe it's Shriver, Cheyenne, and Buckley. We talked about some open tickets that are being worked on. We also talked about the proposed tariff amendment for ECATs. So there's some feedback being provided on that and some things being worked out, especially for agencies that already have ECATs, and what will be done to kind of remedy some of those billing issues or contractual issues. We did talk about updates for text to 911. There will be some cost information coming out about that in the near future. And then also talked about the spatial call routing and an offering that Intrado is doing for some gap analysis, and there will be some information coming out about that. I think that's really everything that we talked about. Is there anything that I'm missing, Kimberly, that you can think of?
No, I think that's a good high level for this group.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And Tina, this is Daryl. We have a committee chair email list that I neglected to put you on. So I'll make sure that happens before the next task force meeting so that you're not put on the spot like this.
Okay, hey, no worries. I don't mind. Thank you.
And this is Scott. Thank you, Kimberly and Tina both. Were there any questions for either Tina or Kimberly? Okay, then we will move on to the GIS committee report. Matt Gitch.
Good morning, everyone. This is Matt. We've been working with Datamark to develop slightly different surveys for 911 stakeholders and local GIS departments on their GIS data readiness for next generation 911. And they're on hold right now while Chris Shao is out of the office, but that'll pick up again soon. And then hopefully we'll find time to start discussions with Colorado OIT GIS to see how they can help us with maybe distributing these surveys to the local GIS departments and perhaps a more in-depth set of surveys in the future. The goal here is for gap analysis to see where our strengths and weaknesses are in getting ready for converting to the GEO-MSAG that's coming, and then full-fledged NG 911 in the future.
And this is Scott. Thank you for that, Matt. Are there any questions for Matt? Well, thank you, Matt. We appreciate it. We do have an item, or the next item on the agenda is for the public safety broadband update, but I do not see Ed Mills on the call. However, he did provide a written update here that they are working towards understanding the potential of federal funding coming to the state and how it relates to public safety. If we have needs for broadband projects that focus on things like resiliency, connectivity, redundant fiber plans, etc., they would like to hear from us and understand our needs. And he provides his email address there. So if you have items like that you would like to share with the state for their planning purposes, this information and Ed's email are both contained in the report that was sent out with the agenda. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, PSCS report, Denny.
Here I am. This is Deanie. And the only update I have right now is I wanted to remind everyone that there is a PSCS Radio Summit that it will be, it's scheduled for May 4th and 5th. And the location is to be determined. Unfortunately, the place that we had is no longer available. So as soon as we have that information out, I'm sure there will be an email sent out, and I'll make sure to provide that information. And that would be it for now.
And this is Scott. Thank you for that, Deanie. Are there any questions for Deanie? Okay. Next item, of course, is our SWIC report, but that is currently vacant, so we don't have a report. Oh, I see that Pam Monsees is actually going to fill that role, and it looks like Pam Monsees is on the call. So Pam, if you don't mind, could you give us an update?
Good morning, everyone. Pam Monsees. I am the interim SWIC right now, and I've taken those duties on in addition to my regular role. So it's kind of a part-time situation for me, but I'll try to do the best that I can. I'm working right now with the Interoperable Communications Technical Assistance Program, better known as ICTAP, to fulfill some of the requests for training that had previously been submitted by the former SWIC. One of those is to update the statewide communications interoperability plan, or this better known as the SKIP. We're trying to get this SWIC position filled with a permanent person in order to really give that SKIP a good once over, but we have supplied enough to do just a quick refresh on that SKIP so we can stay in compliance with our federal mandates for the SKIP. Other than that, I really don't have anything major to report to this group. To tag on to Deanie's report, the 2022 annual radio summit will be held at the Pace Center in Parker. We did, as Deanie alluded to, we did have to move from the Lamar Center in Arvada. COVID has caused a lot of issues, and they're actually closing that venue due to some COVID issues. So we have moved to the Pace Center, and we'll be opening up registration for that summit probably very shortly, within the next few days. So other than that, if there aren't any questions, I will hand it back.
And this is Scott. Thank you for that, Pam. And thank you for filling in and providing us the information as well. We appreciate it. Are there any questions for Pam on that information? Okay, we'll move on then to the Division of Fire Prevention and Control report. I did not see Monica on the call. Daryl or Holly, I'm not sure if she provided any, or anybody else, if she provided any information prior to the meeting.
I did not receive anything. I don't know if somebody else was filling in for her on that, given her new position. Vicki, did you attend one of those on her behalf?
I did not. Well, I mean, I did, but it was.
They may simply not have met.
It was like, yeah, it was like 4 months ago. I want to say 3 or 4 months ago. So.
Okay. So
sorry, this is Vicki.
Okay, this is Scott. Thank you, Vicki. I appreciate it. We'll just circle back for an update at the next meeting. And Vicki, if you don't mind, I'll put you on the spot as well for an update for the Colorado 911 Resource Center.
Sure. We actually have a call scheduled tomorrow to kind of do some strategic discussions about next steps. We unfortunately could not have the meeting after the PUC task force meeting like we typically have due to some scheduling conflicts. So we're going to be meeting tomorrow. Daryl, that's going to be a public meeting, correct? Did we post that?
I don't know that it's been posted, but I can, I will send it out to the listserv following this meeting.
Okay.
Because our meetings are typically open to the public.
Correct. Just for everyone's information, we probably are going to go into executive session at one point to discuss employee matters, but yes, it'll be open to the public, and I believe it's tomorrow at 3 p.m. So Daryl will send that information out. Other than that, I do not have an update.
And I've got one item to add. So AdCom actually reached out to Monica because they had a terrific idea. It's extremely grateful to them for coming up with this idea. And that was that National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week is coming soon, and not every 911 center has access to the same resources to help their telecommunicators celebrate that week. So AdCom offered to help sponsor another 911 center that might need some additional resources to help their telecommunicators celebrate National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week. Then Denver found out about that idea and they said, hey, that's a terrific idea. So let's do that too. So we helped them find somebody. And then Jefferson County made the same offer. And then I said, okay, we need to come up with a process here. So I sent out over the Colorado 911 listserv a form that people can use to request sponsorship. And then also asked that if any 911 centers want to be a sponsor, to let us know so that we can help match them up with a requester. And we've had some great results with that so far, but I want to encourage everyone. I know that time is coming up quick for National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week, but if you are either a 911 center that may need some additional assistance to help your frontline personnel participate and celebrate National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week, or if you're a 911 center that would like to sponsor another 911 center to help them, please let me know. So we're doing this as a joint program of the Resource Center and the Commission's 911 Program Office. So next year, I plan on doing this again, and we'll just start a lot earlier. We'll start probably at the beginning of February and start asking for requests for who needs some assistance and who's willing to give some assistance. But because time is short, I didn't want anybody to wait on that. If that interests you, please let me know.
Yeah, awesome.
This is Scott. Thank you for that, Daryl, and agree. That is a fantastic idea. So thank you, AdCom and Denver and Jeffco for jumping on that right away. And thank you, Daryl, for taking that step to help coordinate the work for this. I did see a post in the chat and I see that somebody's already replied, so no need to address that. But I do see that Joe has his hand up. Joe, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a question of what does the sponsorship involve? What does it look like? What do they do?
So because this has been very short notice, we haven't really put a lot of formal parameters around it. If somebody says, I'm willing to sponsor somebody, I put them on a list, and then with the form that we sent out, I'm getting a list of anyone who wants sponsorships, and then I'm matching them together and then letting them talk through the details. Prior to doing it next year, since we'll have more time, I do plan on maybe getting some people together who participated this year to say, how did this work for you? If there are parameters that we should put around this ahead of time, what are your thoughts on what those parameters should look like? But because time is so short, I haven't tried to put any details on that, and just letting the requesters and the requestees work together on it.
But I mean, is it sharing funds? Is it sharing information resources for distribution to the public? Is it?
Well, so National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week is usually for people inside the center, so it's not so much public education, but it could be purchasing gifts for the employees so that they'll receive during National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week. It could be sponsoring a party for the employees. It could be anything along those lines.
This is Jackie from AdCom. And yes, that's exactly what we're doing. We're calling it our Pay It Forward program. We hold a fundraiser at AdCom and we sell AdCom clothing items to our employees at just a little bit of a markup, and those extra funds go into our Pay It Forward program. And we are going to be providing swag. We're going to be providing food and other special gifts for we actually picked 2 centers. One is in state and one is out of state. And we just want to honor them the way we've been honored by our awesome agencies in the past.
And I'll echo what Mandy just put in the chat. It is an absolutely terrific idea. I can't believe that we never thought of it before. So thank you, AdCom, for getting the ball rolling on this.
Thank you.
This is Scott. Again, likewise, I just want to say thank you, everybody. This is a fantastic program, and it is a very important week. As we talked about earlier, we know that there's staffing shortages, recruitment issues, the workload and the stress is just increasing for all the PSAP operators. So thank you. This is incredibly important. I appreciate that. We are currently scheduled to take a break for lunch. I don't know if we have any old business or new business to address. Does anybody have any, let me just ask first, do we have any old business to be discussed? Okay, hearing none, do we have any new business to discuss? Okay, well then we might be having lunch here shortly. I'll leave it for open discussion. Are there any other items that anybody would like to bring up for the good of the group? Okay, hearing none, then I will entertain a
Sorry,
motion.
this is Holly.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Holly.
So this is Holly. Somebody had requested that these meetings be held 30 minutes earlier, starting at 9:30, to have an opportunity to like gather and discuss. Daryl and I were talking about whether that actually seems productive. We didn't have anybody join this morning. I mean, Jeff and Daryl had some nice chatting this morning. But other than that, we did not have anybody attend that. So taking that back to the group, whether that is something that folks are genuinely interested in, or if we might direct those resources elsewhere.
And this is Scott. Thank you for that, Holly. So for the group, because it was a group discussion at the January meeting, requesting this, is there still an interest in doing so? This is the first time, so maybe people forgot that it was an option. But is there still an interest from the group? Because Holly does have to take the time out to make sure she opens the bridge earlier than usual. So we just want to make sure that that is an effective use of time.
And this is Daryl, just to add on to that. We also, in order to make the meeting accessible from the very moment that it's opened, we also have to schedule the interpreters for an additional half hour, which is an additional expense, which we don't mind. You know, it's the state paying for it. We don't mind paying for that expense as long as it's being used. But if it's not being used, then it may be better to reserve those resources.
This is Jeff. I say resend it.
This is Matt. I meant to sign in early. I just forgot first time around, right? But I'm interested in the socializing aspect of it beforehand, but okay, either way.
This is Vicki. I think that is one element that we have lost with our in-person meetings, is having the ability to have some of the networking possibility. And so, I mean, if we can get some sufficient interest in it, I think it'd be a worthwhile endeavor.
Maybe we don't have to decide today. Maybe we can go, do this for a couple more meetings and see if it catches on.
And this is Scott. Daryl, apologies. I was just looking, I can't remember, is our May meeting the next or the first in-person, well, hybrid? It'll be the first hybrid meeting we're going to try.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. I meant to bring that up. So because our meeting was going to take place during the week of the state NENA APCO conference, I've reached out to the NENA APCO board, and we were going to have the meeting in Loveland anyway. So I've reached out to the NENA APCO board, and we're actually going to have space at the conference on the pre-conference day for our task force meeting on that day. It'll be a different time, but it will be in person / virtual. You don't have to show up in person to participate. But if you want to participate in person, there will be that opportunity. And although we encourage everyone to register for the conference and to participate in the conference, you don't have to register just to attend the task force meeting.
And this is Scott. Thank you for that, Daryl. And I think that ties also to this discussion for those that are able to attend in person. It would give the opportunity for socialization there. But I agree, let's try, we'll keep this on the, for the next meeting, we'll also open up a little early and see if there's any adoption. If not, then we can look at closing that out so that funds could be used better elsewhere. So thank you for that item, Holly. I'm sorry, go ahead.
This is Holly again. Will we be offering any type of lunch or anything at the May meeting since it's in person? I just want to make sure if we do that we maybe collect RSVPs so we have an idea if we're providing any type of food or services to attendees.
Polly, it's going to be held because of, we're being cognizant of the fact that some people will be traveling in that day for the conference. So we're actually holding it later in the afternoon. It'll be from 3 to 5 p.m. So there will not be a lunch.
And this is Scott, but thank you, Holly, for thinking of the logistics on that. Appreciate it. Okay, this is still Scott. Does anybody else have any items for the good of the group? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Jackie at AdCom, so moved.
Thank you, Jackie. Jackie motions, and then Carl, if you're okay, we'll take you as a second.
That's fine.
Any in opposition? All right, well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, our interpreters, for all of your hard work today. We really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody who was able to participate. And we look forward to seeing people again in May for those of us that can do so in person. So thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, everyone.